And it's my pleasure now to introduce my friend, the Reverend Dr. William A. Holmes. You see his biography in the material for the conference. Let me just say that he represents one of those great men of history, and he's blushing as I say that. But here's someone who also came to Washington to be at the helm of the National Church of Methodism, and held that position and preached with courage and boldness from that pulpit, and continues to lead us as we think about what it means to be faithful in this world. So I am so pleased for the opportunity to welcome to this microphone, which is now working, the Reverend Dr. William A. Holmes.
Precisely the way I wrote it. I've always heard when you get old that you can do most anything you please, and I'm going to get out of this straitjacket that I'm wearing, operate a little better. And let me say good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can't think of a better way to begin a day than with being in the company of fellow Mathusians. It's great to see all of you this morning. I want to begin with some words from Albert Camus. 20 years after he served in the French underground resistance, and after he received the Nobel Peace Prize, or the Nobel Prize for Literature, he wrote in Resistance, Rebellion, and Death the following challenge to the church. What the world expects of Christians is that they should speak out loud and clear. What we need is a grouping of men and women who are resolved to speak out clearly and pay up personally. The world is waiting, and I am waiting, for those who refuse to be dogs and are willing to pay the price that must be paid for a human being to be something more than a dog. Now, I think the words of that challenge still ricochet and resonate through the intervening decades, and I think they have some dangerous implications for this symposium, because in the next few days we could really do something to alter the trajectory of history in our own time and bend a little history. Or in the next few days we could just do nothing but honor the Matthews brothers. We Christians excel at venerating, and we couldn't have two more worthy subjects. But listen, did you notice that the planners of this symposium built in a firewall against vacuous tributes to the Matthews? The name of that firewall is workshop tracks, breakout groups, where comprehensive visions will be refined into goals, and goals into strategies, and strategies into tactics, and tactics into timelines, and timelines into accountability. It's as though they hung a sign out there on the door saying, "No abstractions allowed." The planners of this symposium are hoping, they are requesting, they are demanding that we get beyond generalities and shove out into history to advance the humanizing, civilizing process, which not incidentally just might be what it really means to honor the work of Bishop Jim and Brother Joe. Two men who in their own time spoke out clearly and paid up personally. and transformed the lives of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, including my own life. From my earliest seminary days, I've been a camp follower of the Matthews juggernaut. Seldom on the inside, but never on the outside so far enough away that I could ignore the claims that these two men laid upon my life. Initially, that was many years ago. Now I'm 80 years old, in my 12th year of retirement, deaf as a post. I have a balance problem. Walk like I'm 3 sheets to the wind, which ain't good for a Methodist preacher. And steady myself with a $10 cane from Mexico. And in my more sober moments, I ask, what in the hell am I doing here? When do I get to retire from this? Despite the fact that I already know the answer to that question. So I'm still a camp follower. Now my assignment this morning in this keynote is twofold. I've been asked to say a word about what I believe to be the enduring truths or values of the Matthews legacy. And in the second place, I've been asked to say a word about where I think those truths and that legacy find application in our day, with specific examples. So let me begin with the first half of that assignment and talk for a moment about enduring truths. I'm going to briefly mention 4. I'm going to say a word about how those are incarnated in the life of each of the brothers. And after much deliberation, I've decided I'm going to risk being self-referential and say a word about how each of these men first intersected my own biography. So, enduring value number 1. To be in Christ is to have one primary vocation: the renewal of the church for the sake of renewing the world. Now, be sure you get that entire sentence. It's not just for the renewal of the church, period. It's the renewal of the church for the sake of renewing the world. That really means having 2 vocations. Brother Joe said you really have 2 in the sense that you have a paravocation. That's your secondary vocation. Now your paravocation is the one that puts bread on the table for most of us. It's the one that pays the light bill. It's the one from which we receive a salary or a pension. That's your secondary vocation, your paravocation. But your primary vocation is packed like a stick of dynamite into one little 4-letter word: to care. Not to care casually, but to care radically, to care profoundly, to care sacrificially for others, and thereby renewing the church for the sake of renewing the world. I want to say a little bit more about that later. Enduring truth number 2. We are always on duty. Bishop Jim says in Global Odyssey that to be in Jesus Christ is to be in a movement that is worldwide and history long. It is to be the bishop says, under a life sentence. I don't know whether you ever had a chance to ask Brother Joe when you get to retire from the Spirit movement. If you did, he probably looked you in the eye and said, well, how old are you? And if you said, well, I'm 45, well, he'd say you get to retire when you reach the age of 90, unless you live to be 91. Felton May was my bishop for a few years. When he retired, he said that in retirement, I don't intend to rust out, I intend to burn out. And if you heard him last night, you know that this man's still burning and has a fiery passion. We are always on duty. Enduring truth number 3, the double paradox. You give your life in order to find it, and you engage the particular to address the universal. Now, neither of these paradoxes make any sense in the usual meaning of the word sense. Both of them are counterintuitive. The logic of the world is that you don't give something away if you value it, especially your own dear life. Rather, you seize it, grasp it, hold on to it for all you're worth. Giving something away is called losing it. A vessel being poured out is being empty. How could you possibly lose your life and pour it out in a way that could give meaning to your existence? And as far as addressing the universal crises is concerned, where do you begin? Poverty is rampant. Starvation is in ascendancy. New and old diseases mock human efforts. Wars and rumors of wars define more and more nations, including this one. How naive, how Pollyanna, to think that any group of people could even begin to fix some aspect of the world. And yet, the secret of the double paradox, which is the best kept secret in the world, continues to be passed from one generation to the next. A strange community of possibility exists in history to model the divine foolishness. You give your life in order to find it. You address the particular to engage the universal. Enduring truth number 4. The church has been renewed. A lot of people don't know that.
Church is renewed.
Toward the end of the 1950s, the theoretical task of church renewal had been accomplished. What has been emerging since is operating images and scouting expeditions to demonstrate what it means to care in the family, radically, profoundly, sacrificially, what it means to care in the community, what it means to care in the nation, what it means to care in the world. Even though this is the long march, worldwide and history long, we are not charismatic revolutionaries. We are structural revolutionaries, revolutionaries with a plan. And undergirding it all is a spirit training, which includes serious fun, which has to do with dancing and waltzing and grand balls. We have the time of our lives while giving our lives. The church has been renewed. Now, we're mopping up.